The German army did not have a formalized martial arts training program like modern military forces do today. Training for a World War II German soldier varied depending on the branch of the military and the specific role of the soldier. Initial training lasted for 16 weeks, a relatively long training period by comparison to any other armed force at the time. However, even this training program taught only the most basic of the soldiering skills: weapon maintenance, discipline, equipment familiarization, navigation via map, and the rapid construction of basic fieldworks. The focus during the 16 weeks training was undoubtedly on turning a civilian into a soldier and acclimatize him to living and fighting with a small unit. Limited food was another aspect of the German training regime. The day would begin at 5 a.m. and last into the long hours of the night. Breakfast would not come until 7 a.m., and it was, contrary to better health practices now known, sparse. The idea was that no hard work had yet been done that day, and therefore no hearty meal had yet been earned, greatly encapsulating the action-first attitude being bred into the German army at the time. Practical experiences were the main priority of the training regime, but like all militaries, lectures were used to brief men for more practical exercises. These lectures were kept to a minimum and often had political indoctrination. Almost every day there was some form of political indoctrination, lectures on history as seen by the Nazis, discussion of news, and lectures by local party officials. Another unique aspect was the focus on the familiarization with automatic weaponry. More often than not, time spent with the rifle, sparse as it often was in most militaries of the day, was often all an infantry recruit would know unless part of a specialized or weapons outfit. However, the German tactical focus on the LMG at the small unit level required a higher level of familiarization than in other armies. In short, all troops had to have the very least of rough familiarity with the MG series. All men therefore received training and ample range time, and those who showed great skill or promise with the weapon were marked for additional training. After basic training, soldiers would receive specialized training based on their roles within the military. For example, infantry soldiers would receive additional training in combat tactics, marksmanship, and hand-to-hand combat. The German Army, the Unified Armed Forces of Germany from 1935 to 1945, did not have a formalized martial arts training program like some modern military forces do today. However, individual soldiers might had some training in hand-to-hand combat techniques as part of their overall military training. During World War II, the German military did emphasize close combat training, including techniques for using bayonets, knives, and hand-to-hand combat. This training was typically focused on practical and efficient methods for engaging in close combat situations rather than a formalized martial arts training program. In close-in hand-to-hand combat, The shovel also made a good field expedient weapon. The small shovel with a collapsible handle that was issued to ground troops is called an entrenching tool, and as the name indicates, it was used by the troops for digging foxholes and, if no larger shovels were available, for digging defensive trenches. While some individual soldiers may have had prior training in boxing from civilian life, it was not a standard part of the Army's training program. The emphasis was more on firearms training, tactics, and strategy rather than martial arts specifically. When it came to close quarters and hand-to-hand combat in World War II, the martial art used by the vast majority of soldiers was called "do what you can" and "try to survive it." The training of the German forces didn't include a dedicated hand-to-hand combat system. But in the middle of the war, the army designed a special decoration for those soldiers who participated in close-quarter battles. The Nahkampfspange, or the Close Combat Clasp, was a World War II German military award instituted on the 25th of November 1942 for the participation in hand-to-hand fighting at close quarters. It was intended for Army and Waffen-SS infantry, Luftwaffe ground units, and of course the paratroopers. The Close Combat Clasp was donated by Adolf Hitler because of the increasing severity of the war on the Eastern Front. Previously, there had never been an award for this form in German military history. The award was bestowed in 3 classes: bronze for 15 close combat actions, silver for 25 close combat actions, and gold for 50 close combat actions. It is also important to note that the Golden Close Combat Clasp was accompanied by a special holiday of 21 days. Close combat actions were counted from the 1st of December 1942, with earlier long service on the Eastern Front counting towards the award, with 15 continuous months counting as 15 combat actions, 12 months as 10, and 8 months as 5. Of the roughly 18 million German soldiers, 36,400 received the bronze class, 9,500 the silver class, and only 631 the gold class. Some of them were really young, like Werner Kindler, a soldier of the 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler. He was only 23 when he received the Nahkampfspange in gold. The clasp was worn above the upper left uniform pocket, above any medal ribbon bar. Only one badge, the highest level received, was worn. The design of all 3 classes was basically the same, with a centerpiece consisting of the eagle and swastika national emblem surmounting a crossed bayonet and hand grenade, with each side a spray of oak leaves. Although the definition of close combat was given, the assessment and documentation of such combat was given to the troops. All days of combat had to be officially documented and confirmed by the relevant unit before a close combat clasp could be awarded. But due to the harsh everyday life at the front, it often happened that close combat lists were kept unreliably and updated too late, which meant that many soldiers received the close combat clasp when they were entitled too late or not at all. During the war, some soldiers who were awarded the Golden Close Combat Clasp were transferred to a military school for a year so that these soldiers could pass on their frontline experiences to other soldiers. It is important to note that the Golden Close Combat Clasp was often regarded in higher esteem than the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross by the German infantry. In the final part of the war, the German High Command announced on the 26th of March 1944 that Hitler had personally reserved the right to hand over the Golden Close Combat Clasp. Later handouts were also made by Heinrich Himmler in his position as commander of the Reserve Army, or General Heinz Guderian in his position as Chief of the Army General Staff. Luftwaffe ground troops and paratroopers had been eligible for the Close Combat Clasp from its creation. However, in November of 1944, a Luftwaffe version was approved, applying the same award criteria and 3 classes as the existing clasp. The badge comprised a laurel wreath set behind a Luftwaffe eagle and swastika surmounting a crossed bayonet and hand grenade. While awards of the new clasp were authorized and award certificates issued, there is no evidence that it was actually manufactured and presented before the end of the war. Nazi-era awards were initially banned by the post-war Federal Republic of Germany. However, in 1957, many World War II military decorations, including the Close Combat Clasp, were redesigned. The eagle and the swastika were removed and then reauthorized for wear by the veterans. Members of the Bundeswehr would wear the badge on the ribbon bar, represented by a small replica of the award on a field grey ribbon. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and to make sure you don't miss my future work, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel and press the bell notification button. Thank you, and see you in the next video.